this is out of control. I want to share with you one more clip from Michael Knowles because he had a very interesting perspective about his face, about just laws and politics and how this is all integrated and interwoven in this conversation about why women and men feel so bold and feel so confident living this way. So this type of stuff have been around for centuries. I mean, it was in the Bible. So we know that prostitution has always been a thing, but it's getting so out of control during this time. And he has an interesting perspective. So I'm going to play it for you now.
Illegal or otherwise circumscribed by the culture and the law. One, prostitution should be illegal. I'm not saying that it has to be completely banished everywhere and totally enforced at all times. And the reason I'm not saying that is an insight of St. Thomas Aquinas. Even St. Thomas Aquinas says that, following St. Augustine, that you don't necessarily want to totally obliterate prostitution in a society. Prostitution exists in every society. And one of the reasons you don't want to totally obliterate it is that not everyone is equally advanced in virtue. And in some cases, if we don't meet people where they are, they'll just crack. So you can't have unrealistically high ideals and standards and norms in a society, especially a society as decadent as ours.
I think that's a really good point. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with we should not illegalize prostitution, because I absolutely believe that we should. It's wicked, it's disgusting, it's perverted, it needs to go. If we had a choice to do it, get rid of it. I also do understand this perspective of not everyone has the same standards of virtue. And meaning if this thing is taken away and they can no longer engage or indulge in this thing, they could crack. And what would them cracking look like? It could very well be them turning violent, turning rageful, turning lashing out because they can't indulge in these cravings. Again, that the demons in them or surrounding them are needing to be satiated. These cravings of perversion and sexual immorality and sin ultimately are from the demons. It's not from the people. It's from the demons tormenting them. So if the demons can't get fed and the people are so influenced by these demonic forces, what could happen? They could break. They could go through withdrawal because they've been feeding this craving for so long. And now if the demons can't get fed, what will happen? It's something to think about. And it's just an interesting perspective.
Lest the society become convulsed with lust and become even worse. So there's a place for prudence here. However, pretty clearly to me, and prostitution need to be severely curtailed. The libs and the libertarians are arguing that it should be liberalized. Both of those should be liberalized or decriminalized. Seems to me, if you got some young girl, how old is that girl? She looks like she's 22 or something, trying to bed 1,000 guys in one day. That would be an example of we need to curtail these things on the consumption side and on the production side. We need to arrest pimps. We were doing this relatively recently. George W. Bush, at the end of his administration, arrested and imprisoned for obscenity. So it can happen. Then there obviously ought to be public health ordinances against this. You should not be able to bed 1,000 people in a day. That's so profoundly disgusting and should be illegal. So, but that might infringe on people's rights to have orgies and thruples and quadruples. That's true. But we would have had laws against all of these things for most of American history before the sexual revolution. No one would have thought that anyone has a right to that. So that should be illegal. You're not allowed to go to Granny's funeral during COVID. You have to stand 6 feet away and you have to cancel Christmas. But this lady's allowed to bag 1,000 fellas. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Then,
Hello. We have to socially distance and have all of these hygienic policies in order to not spread things to people, but yet we can share human liquids and fluids and just do that with no regulation, nothing being enforced that stops this level of craziness taking place. It's out of control. We'll listen to a little bit more.
something tells me that woman doesn't have a great relationship with her father, we should probably discourage divorce. We should probably encourage people getting married. We should probably discourage contraception, which promotes a promiscuous culture of hookups and sterility and selfish relations between the sexes, really just using the opposite sex for one's own immediate gratification. That seems like a good idea. Sometimes you'll hear the libs and the libertarians say, well, how does my personal behavior affect you? As if to say, hey, how does the complete degradation of society and the upending of mores and the changing of language and the way we even understand the world affect you? It affects me because I'm a citizen and we live in society and I'm a human being. It affects me because this is how human beings have always interacted. And we're not just atoms, we're floating in the ether. We're not just coconuts that fell out of the coconut tree, to quote Kamala Harris. So even that, if you had a culture which discouraged divorce, which discouraged promiscuity, which discouraged abortion, one of the greatest evils in the world, because it tells you not to have any care for your children. If a mother can kill her own child, as Mother Teresa tells us, then there's no limit to what anyone can do to anyone. If you just had that, would this woman really be doing this? You listen to any interview with any person, they never have good relationships with their parents. Their parents are almost always divorced. So that the social pathology of divorce lies at the heart of this too. You can't really disconnect these things. And sterility also. If we had a culture that recognized the natural consequences of actions, if we had a culture that recognized telos and the purpose of things, the leftist ears tumbler is for my leftist ears. The microphone is to communicate my mellifluous voice to you. Sex is for the procreation of children. If we had this, then the woman wouldn't get anywhere near 1,000 fellas because she'd wind up pregnant, at least within the first few. We just wouldn't view sex in the way that we view it today.
Very amazing points.